Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Before we get into tonight's game, I wanted to ask a question. Do you have extra cards lying around that you don't use? Want to buy or trade for some extra cards but don't know how to maximize the value? Then you should try out today's sponsor, Card Conduit. Card Conduit is the best service when it comes to selling your extra cards. Don't waste hours trying to find the best buy list price for your cards online. Simply send them to Card Conduit and let them take care of the rest. I have used Card Conduit multiple times already. I always use them to get the best value for my extra cards. I get fair prices for my cards and they save me tons of time. They have three main services. Their standard service lets you send them your unsorted cards of any value. They will sort, grade, and give you the best price for your cards. Their curated service is similar. Send them your unsorted cards worth over $1 in value. They will charge half the fee of the standard service and charge no fee per card. Their sorted service is a great value as well. Choose cards in advance with their selection tool, send them sorted to Card Conduit, and they will grade and buy list them automatically. Save yourself the time of having to send to multiple sites and let Card Conduit do it instead. Their fee is only 2% with no fee per card. They give you the best price for your cards. They work with competitive buy listing partners, including ones not open to the public. Users get an average of 19% more for their collection than they would from any major retail buy list, even with Card Conduit's fees. Card Conduit also optimizes buy listing for card condition as well. Since vendors have different penalties for wear and tear, Card Conduit will find the best buy list priced against the specific condition of the card. So give Card Conduit a try today. If you sign up with my link in the description below or use the promo code POWER, you will also get 10% off of their fees when you use their service. A big thanks to Card Conduit for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Cal piloting Marwyn the Nurturer. This is a mono-green storm deck that seeks to create infinite mana and kill the table with very large creatures. Cal's opening hand contains an Umbral Mantle, Return of the Wild Speaker, Ancient Tomb, Birds of Paradise, Crop Rotation, and 2 snow-covered forests. Next, we have James piloting Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. This deck seeks to cast its commander and cheat huge threats onto the battlefield as quickly as possible. James' opening hand contains a Verdant Catacombs, Breeding Pool, Reshape, Basalt Monolith, Mana Vault, Mirage Mirror, and his London Mulligan is a counterbalance. After that, we have Philip piloting Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. This deck seeks to cast and sacrifice its commander over and over, being able to cast its deck and win the game. Philip's opening hand contains a Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, Molten Echoes, Mystic Forge, Mountain, Gamble, Shattered Skull Smashing, and his London Mulligan is a Ruby Medallion. Finally, we have Mike piloting Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. This is a mid-range deck seeking to control the board while burning out opponents with Yuriko triggers. Mike's opening hand contains a Misty Rainforest, Street Wraith, Cover of Darkness, Seagate Restoration, Mana Crypt, Diabolic Intent, and a Universal Automaton. Without further ado, let's kick off this one-sided one-time one-way one-on-one. Cal had the best outfit at the Ugly Ball and gets to start us off. Cal draws and plays a snow-covered forest. He casts a Birds of Paradise. He passes. James draws and plays a Misty Rainforest. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts a Mana Vault. He casts a Basalt Monolith. This is a problem for the table, and James passes to Philip. Philip draws and plays a mountain. He casts Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. Philip ends his turn. Mike draws and starts off his turn by paying 2 life to cycle Street Wraith, drawing a card. He plays a Misty Rainforest for turn. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Universal Automaton. He casts Moon Circuit Hacker. Mike sends it over to Cal. Cal draws and plays an Ancient Tomb. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Marwyn the Nurturer. He casts Allosaurus Shepherd. Marwyn triggers and gets a counter. Cal passes. During his draw step, James takes the damage from his Mana Vault. He plays a Breeding Pool into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Kinnan Bonder Prodigy. One by one, the table passes priority, and Kinnan resolves. James taps Basalt Monolith, adding 4 mana through Kinnan. He activates Basalt for 3, untapping it. With this loop, he generates infinite mana. He casts Mirage Mirror. He activates Mirage Mirror, targeting Basalt Monolith. He holds priority and activates Mirage Mirror, targeting Tropical Island. He continues to hold priority and adds these abilities to the stack hundreds of thousands of times. As he lets each of these resolves, he untaps it as Basalt Monolith and then taps it for mana as Tropical Island. With this, he generates infinite colored mana. Now that he has infinite colorless and colored mana, James begins to activate Kinnan. He does this until he puts Prophet of Distortion onto the battlefield. He then uses his mana to draw out his deck. He casts Walking Ballista, where X is like a lot. And then he activates Walking Ballista, machine gunning the table, and James wins the game. The team decided to go again. In this game, Mike brings back Yuriko the Tiger Shadow, and his opening hand contains a City of Brass, Mana Crypt, Phyrexian Walker, Fallen Shinobi, Demonic Tutor, and his London Mulligans are consigned to oblivion and Commandeer. Cal brings back Marwyn the Nurturer, and his opening hand contains a Garruk Primal Hunter, Arbor Elf, Finehorn Elves, Fierce Empath, Quirion Ranger, Nature's Claim, and a snow-covered forest. James brings back Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, and his opening hand contains a Mana Vault, Tide Channel Pathway, Counterbalance, Thrasios Triton Hero, Arcane Signet, Lotus Petal, and his Lena Mulligan is a Nyx Bloom Ancient. Philip brings back Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, and his opening hand contains a Shatterskull Smashing, Karn the Grey Creator, Impulsive Pilferer, Phyrexian Altar, Mana Crypt, Red Elemental Blast, and his Lena Mulligan is a Wheel of Misfortune. And Mike gets to start us off. Mike draws a card for turn and plays a City of Brass. He casts a Mana Crypt. He taps his City of Brass to help cast Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand. He casts Phyrexian Walker. He casts a Grafdigger's Cage. Mike passes. Cal draws a card for turn and plays a Snow-Covered Forest. He casts a Finehorn Elves. He passes. James draws and plays a Tide Channel Pathway. He casts a Lotus Petal. He casts an Arcane Signet. He casts a Mana Vault. James ends his turn. Philip draws and starts off his turn by casting Mana Crypt. He plays a Mountain for turn. He casts Impulsive Pilferer. Philip gives the turn to Mike. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and plays a Misty Rainforest. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He moves to combat and attacks James with Phyrexian Walker. James declares no blocks, and in response, Mike taps his City of Brass to ninjutsu in his commander, Yuriko the Tiger Shadow, bouncing Phyrexian Walker to his hand. Then James takes it and Yuriko triggers. Mike reveals a miscast into his hand with each opponent losing one. In his second main phase, Mike recasts Phyrexian Walker. Mike ships the turn to Cal. Cal draws and plays a Snow-Covered Forest. He casts his commander, Marwyn the Nurturer. Cal passes. James draws and casts a Maraleaf Pixie. He passes. During his upkeep, Philip loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Shatterskull, the Hammer Pass, into play untapped, paying 3 life. He casts his commander, Atsushi the Blazing Sky. Philip sends it over to Mike. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks James with Phyrexian Walker and Yuriko. James blocks Yuriko with Maraleaf Pixie. Before damage, Mike taps his City of Brass to ninjutsu in Nashi, Moon Sage's Scion, bouncing Phyrexian Walker back to his hand. Then James takes it, and Yuriko and Nashi trigger. Mike reveals a Fairy Seer, Cal reveals a Survival of the Fittest, James reveals an Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, and Philip reveals a Desperate Ritual. Then Yuriko's trigger resolves, and Mike reveals a Moon Circuit Hacker into his hand, with each opponent losing 2. In his second main phase, Mike pays 2 life to cast Survival of the Fittest from exile through Nashi. He recasts Phyrexian Walker. Finished up, Mike passes. Cal draws and casts Quirion Ranger. Marwyn triggers and gets a +1/+1 counter. He casts Arbor Elf. Marwyn triggers and gets another counter. He taps Marwyn to cast Fierce Empath, and Marwyn gets a counter. Empath enters, and Cal fetches up a Great Oak Guardian into his hand. He plays a Snow-Covered Forest for turn. He activates Quirion Ranger, bouncing a forest to his hand and untapping Marwyn. He taps Marwyn to help cast Great Oak Guardian. It enters and gives all Cal's creatures +2/+2 until the end of turn, untapping them. He taps Marwyn to cast Garruk, Primal Hunter. He activates Garruk's second ability, drawing 6 cards. He casts Mox Diamond, discarding Snow-Covered Forest. He casts Elvish Pioneer. It enters, Marwyn gets a counter, then Cal puts a Snow-Covered Forest into play tapped. With nothing else, Cal passes. James draws and casts his commander, Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. He passes. During his upkeep, Philip loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Command Beacon. He casts Mirage Mirror. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Atsushi. Mike takes it, and Philip ends his turn. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks James with everything. James double blocks Yuriko with Kinnan and Maraleaf Pixie. Before damage, Mike ninjutsus in Prosperous Thief, bouncing Phyrexian Walker to his hand. Then James takes it, Yuriko dies, and 2 Yuriko, Anashi, and Prosperous Thief all trigger. Mike creates a treasure through Prosperous Thief. Then players reveal Personal Tutor, Kogla the Titan Ape, Mox Opal, and Arkham's Astrolabe. Then Mike reveals an island into his hand, and then reveals a Brainstorm into his hand, with each player losing 1 life. In his second main phase, Mike pays 6 life to cast Kogla the Titan Ape through Nashi. It enters and targets Marwyn. In response, Cal casts Might of Old Kroja, targeting Marwyn. This would unfortunately kill Kogla, so in response, Mike taps his City of Brass to activate Kogla, bouncing Prosperous Thief, giving Kogla indestructible until the end of turn. Then Mike resolves, giving Marwyn +2/+2 until the end of turn. Then they both fight, and Marwyn dies. Mike plays an island for turn. He recasts Phyrexian Walker. Mike ships it over to Cal. Cal draws and casts Temur Sabertooth. In response, James casts Mana Drain, countering Sabertooth. Cal passes. James draws, and in his first main phase, he has 4 colorless through Mana Drain. He casts Thrasios, Triton Hero. In response, Philip casts Red Elemental Blast, countering Thrasios. Next, James casts Counterbalance. Philip reconsiders whether or not Red Blast had the best target, and James passes to Philip. During his upkeep, Philip loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Mike with Atsushi. Mike takes it, and in his second main phase, Philip casts Phyrexian Altar. Counterbalance triggers, and James reveals a Force of Will. Then Altar resolves. Philip casts Ruby Medallion. Philip passes. At the end of Philip's turn, Mike casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks James with Phyrexian Walker, Nashi, and Kogla. Kogla triggers and destroys James' counterbalance. Then James takes it and Nashi triggers. Mike reveals Enter the Infinite, Cal reveals Snow-Covered Forest, James reveals Force of Will, and Philip reveals a Wheel of Fortune. In his second main phase, Mike pays 12 life to cast Enter the Infinite through Nashi. In response, Philip sacrifices Atsushi to Phyrexian Altar, adding a red, trying to find an answer. Atsushi triggers and Philip exiles Skirk Prospector and Sunbird's Invocation. With no other answers, Enter the Infinite resolves. Mike draws all of the cards in his library and puts one back on top. He plays a command tower for turn. He casts a Thassa's Oracle. Oracle enters, and since Mike's devotion is greater than the cards in his library, Mike wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great match. Congrats to Mike and James on their wins tonight. In Game 1, James had just about the best hand you could ask for in Kinnan. Get Kinnan and Basalt on the battlefield, generate tons of mana, and do an awesome loop to close out the game. In Game 2, Mike was able to get the perfect ninjas on the table to accrue value and eventually turn that into a win. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, be sure to subscribe. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.